Story disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction and is intended for entertainment purposes only. The content includes dark themes, horror elements, and fictional depictions of rituals and sacrifices that are purely imaginative and not reflective of any real-life practices or beliefs. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is not suitable for younger audiences, and parental guidance is recommended. The story does not endorse or promote any harmful behavior, violence, or dangerous activities. Please note that all characters, events, and settings are entirely fictional and created for the purpose of storytelling. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events, is purely coincidental. In the next episode, Ao finds himself entangled in a race against time as the god's presence grows more suffocating and the stakes rise. Haunted by cryptic warnings and enigmatic allies, he confronts a figure with dark intentions and uncovers a forbidden book brimming with the god's secrets and power. The line between ally and foe blurs as Ao struggles to decipher truth from manipulation. As the energy in the city crackles with the god's growing influence, Ao realizes that mere resistance won't be enough. He must learn the old ways and embrace his power, or risk losing everything to the shadow of the divine. Stay tuned as the tension peaks and alliances are tested in this gripping chapter series. Ao spent the next few days in a haze, torn between the gods who had marked him and the cryptic warnings of Olwen. He barely slept, pacing through the nights, feeling the weight of the mark on his skin growing heavier with every passing moment. The gods were patient, but he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. One evening, as he walked through the city's bustling market, the air heavy with the scent of roasted meat and fresh produce, he felt something strange, a shift in the atmosphere. The crowd moved around him, but he noticed a figure in the distance, standing alone in the center of the market, a woman draped in dark robes. Her face was hidden beneath a hood, but there was something unmistakably familiar about her presence. Without thinking, Ao began to push through the crowd, the glow in his hands flickering as if reacting to the energy around him. The woman turned as if sensing his approach. Her eyes, burning red, the color of smoldering coals, are locked onto his. "Are you the one they call the chosen?" she asked, her voice like ice. "The one who dares to stand against the gods?" Ao stopped, his heart hammering in his chest. "Who are you?" The woman's smile was twisted, and Ao could feel the power emanating from her. "I am Nia," she said. "And I am here to make sure you do not succeed." Before Ao could react, the ground beneath him trembled. The air grew thick with dark energy, swirling around them like a storm ready to explode. "You cannot stop what is coming," Nia said, her eyes glowing brighter. "The gods will return, and nothing will stand in their way." Ao's hands glowed brighter, the power within him surging in response to Nia's challenge. But deep down, he knew she was right. The gods were coming, and the storm had already begun. Ao's pulse quickened as Nia's dark energy swirled around him. The once bustling market seemed to disappear, replaced by an eerie silence. The wind whispered, carrying with it the scent of ancient, forgotten things. Ao could feel the gods watching, waiting for the storm to reach its peak. Nia's eyes gleamed with malevolence, the red glow a harbinger of the power she wielded. "You think you can stop them, Ao," she sneered. "You are nothing but a puppet. The gods have already chosen their champions. And you are merely a tool in their game." Ao clenched his fists, the dark power within him crackling. "I'm not a tool. I'm not a puppet," he said through gritted teeth. "I won't let the gods destroy this city. I won't let them return." The woman's laughter echoed in the empty market, a cruel sound that made Ao's blood run cold. "You think you can resist them? You, who bear their mark?" She gestured at his hands, glowing faintly in the dim light. "That mark is a beacon for them, Ao. It calls them to this world. They will come, and when they do, nothing will stand in their way." Eo took a step forward, his heart beating loudly in his chest. He could feel the presence of something ancient, something vast, looming just beyond the veil of reality. The gods were closer than ever, their dark influence spreading like a poison through the city. "I will not be their servant," Eo said, his voice steady. "I will fight back. I will find the others. I will make sure that they don't take over." Nia's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing. "You fool. You cannot fight the gods. You can't even begin to understand their power." Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook violently. The buildings around them groaned, and the sky above darkened as if the clouds themselves were drawn to the conflict. A wave of dark energy surged through the air, and Eo felt a sharp pain in his chest. He staggered, his vision blurring as the power inside him fought against Nia's influence. Nia took a step closer, her voice low and dangerous. "You are not ready, Eo. You think you can protect this city, but you are merely a pawn in their plan. There is a greater force at work here. The gods are not interested in the mortal world. They care only for their return to power." Eo fell to his knees, the pain intensifying. He could feel the gods reaching out to him, their presence like a dark cloud pressing in from all sides. The power within him was real, but it was also out of his control, swirling around him in a chaotic storm. For a moment, he felt as though he might lose himself to it. But then, through the haze of pain and fear, the flicker of clarity appeared in his mind. Olwen's words echoed in his head, "You have the power to stop them." He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on that single truth. The gods might have chosen him, but that didn't mean he was bound to their will. He had the strength to resist. Eo stood slowly, summoning every ounce of willpower he had left. The mark on his hands burned, but this time he let it. He embraced the power within him, not as a servant, but as a force to be reckoned with. Nia's expression faltered, her eyes widening with uncertainty. "You resist," she whispered. "But you cannot win." Eo's voice was quiet but firm. "We'll see about that." In a flash, the air around them shifted. The storm that had been building for what felt like an eternity now seemed to crackle with energy. But instead of the darkness consuming him, Eo felt a surge of light, fierce, wild, and untamed, coursing through his veins. He raised his hand, and the power within him responded, a glowing barrier of energy forming around him, pushing Nia's influence back. The woman's smile vanished as she took a step back, her dark power faltering in the face of Eo's newfound strength. "This isn't over, Eo," she hissed, her voice sharp as a blade. "The gods will come. And when they do, you won't be able to stop them." Eo's voice was calm, but his words carried a weight that sent a shiver down her spine. "I'll be ready." Nia's form flickered, and in a blink, she was gone, vanished into the darkness from which she had emerged. Eo stood alone in the quiet market once again, the power still humming in his chest, but now he had a sense of control. For the first time since he had discovered the mark, he felt like he might be able to make a difference. But as he looked up at the dark sky, the threat of the gods loomed larger than ever. The city was still under their watchful gaze. And Eo knew that the real battle was only just beginning. Days passed, and the city remained tense, the air thick with a strange energy. Eo's senses were heightened, every shadow seeming like a potential threat, every whisper in the wind carrying the weight of unseen eyes. He couldn't shake the feeling that the gods were getting closer, that their influence was seeping into the very heart of the city. It was late one evening when Eo received a message from a stranger. The note was simple: "Come to the old library. We need to talk." No name, no signature, just those words scrawled in an almost hurried script. Eo hesitated at first, but the pull of curiosity was too strong. He needed answers, and this might be his only chance to get them. The library was on the outskirts of the city, hidden away in a quiet corner where the streets were darker and the air felt colder. Eo approached cautiously, glancing over his shoulder to make sure he wasn't being followed. When he reached the library's entrance, he noticed the door was slightly ajar, as if someone had been expecting him. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the smell of old books and forgotten knowledge hanging heavy in the air. Eo stepped lightly, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the empty space. In the far corner, an old man sat at a table, his back turned to Eo. The man was hunched over, reading something in a language Eo couldn't quite understand. "You're late," the man said without turning around. Eo stepped closer, wary. "Who are you?" The man finally looked up, his eyes sharp and knowing. "I'm someone who knows the truth. The truth about the gods and the power that they seek. And I know why you've been chosen." Eo swallowed hard. "I don't know why I've been chosen. But I intend to find out." The old man smiled, his face creased with age and wisdom. "The gods have their champions, but they are not the only ones who fight for control. There are others, secret keepers like myself, who guard the old knowledge. The knowledge that can stop them." Eo listened closely, his heart racing. "What do you know?" The old man leaned forward, his voice low. "I know that the gods are not just ancient beings. They are living forces, tied to the belief of the people. And their power grows stronger with every prayer, every offering, every act of worship." Eo's stomach tightened. "But if they are tied to belief, they are only as strong as the belief they feed on," the old man finished. "But there are those who can resist their pull. You, Eo, are one of those. And together with the others, you may have a chance to stop them." Eo looked at the old man, understanding dawning in his eyes. "So, I'm not the only one, am I? There are others like me?" The old man nodded. "Yes. But finding them will not be easy. And there are forces working against you." Eo clenched his fists, determination flaring within him. "I'll find them. And I'll stop the gods." The old man's eyes gleamed with a knowing look. "Be careful, Eo. The gods are watching. And you are not alone." The old man's words echoed in Eo's mind as he stepped out of the library into the cool night air. The city was quieter than usual, the streets still and empty, as though the entire place held its breath. The weight of the god's presence pressed down on him like a heavy cloak. He was no longer just a man caught in the flow of life. Now, he was a part of something far greater and far more dangerous than he could have imagined. Eo had learned that the gods were not merely ancient figures from stories. They were forces, powerful, terrifying, and living on in the belief of those who still worshipped them. If he wanted to stop them, he would need allies, those who had been chosen like he was, those who held the knowledge and strength to fight back. But the old man's warning still lingered in his mind. "Be careful, Eo. The gods are watching. And you are not alone." Eo had no idea who or what the other force might be, but he knew one thing for sure: he had to find the others like him. They would need to band together, to resist the gods and their dark power. As he made his way through the winding streets, a chill ran down his spine. Something felt off. The city had always been alive with noise and movement, but tonight, it felt as though the walls themselves were watching him. He heard footsteps behind him, quick and quiet, but when he turned, no one was there. He shook his head, trying to clear his mind. The god's influence was already beginning to wear on him. He paused at a street corner, looking around. His instincts told him to be on high alert, but there was no immediate danger. Then, from a shadowy alleyway ahead, a figure emerged. It was a woman, draped in a dark cloak that seemed to absorb the light around her. Eo's heart quickened as she drew closer. The woman was tall and slender, her face hidden beneath the hood, but her eyes gleamed in the dim light. There was something about her, something both familiar and unsettling. "Are you Eo?" she asked, her voice low and steady. Eo tensed, unsure whether to trust her. "Who are you?" he demanded. The woman stepped into the light, revealing her face. Her skin was a rich, dark brown, and her eyes were sharp and piercing, as though she could see through him. "I'm someone who's been watching you," she said. "You've been chosen, just as I have. We are part of something much bigger, Eo." Eo frowned. "What do you mean?" She pulled back the hood, revealing long, braided hair adorned with beads and charms that clinked softly as she moved. "My name is Imani. I've been waiting for you. The gods are coming, Eo, and we need to act quickly." Eo narrowed his eyes. "You know about the gods?" Imani nodded. "I know more than you can imagine. They've been watching us for centuries. But now they're coming back, stronger than ever. The city is a key, Eo. They need it to open the gateway to the world they left behind." Eo's heart skipped a beat. He remembered the old man's words about the gods feeding on belief. Could it be that the city itself was the key to their return? Could their influence already be rooted in the very ground beneath his feet? "I don't know how to stop them," Eo admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I only know that I have to." Imani stepped closer, her gaze intense. "You're not alone in this. There are others like us, chosen by the gods to either serve them or fight against them. I can introduce you to them. Together, we can find a way to stop the gods from coming." Eo hesitated for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Could he really trust this stranger? Could he afford to? Imani seemed to sense his hesitation. "The gods are already searching for you, Eo. You can't run from this. You either stand with us, or you fall alone." Eo felt the truth in her words. He couldn't face this battle alone. He needed allies, people who understood the gods' dark magic and the rituals that bound them. "Okay," he said, his voice resolute. "I'll go with you." Imani gave him a small, knowing smile. "Good. But first, we need to meet someone. Someone who knows the ancient rituals. They can help us figure out how to stop the gods before it's too late." Eo nodded. "Where do we go?" Imani glanced around, her eyes flickering with a hint of something darker, something ancient. "Follow me." Imani led Eo through narrow alleys, their footsteps silent in the night. The city was dark, but there was something different about the night air. It felt thicker, heavier, almost as if the gods themselves were watching. They arrived at an old, decrepit building, its walls crumbling and covered in vines. It looked abandoned, but Eo could feel a strange energy radiating from within. This was no ordinary place. Imani pushed open the heavy wooden door, and the two of them stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, the only source of light coming from a few flickering candles scattered across the floor. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and incense. At the center of the room sat an old woman, her face wrinkled with age but her eyes sharp and alert. She wore an elaborate necklace of bones and beads, her hands adorned with ancient rings. There was something powerful about her, something otherworldly. Imani bowed slightly to the woman. "Mother Nia, this is Eo. He's one of us." Mother Nia's eyes flicked over to Eo, her gaze intense. "I know him," she said in a voice as raspy as wind through dry leaves. "The gods have chosen him, just as they have chosen you, Imani. But he doesn't understand the full weight of their power yet." Eo felt his stomach tighten at the mention of the gods. "What do we do now?" Mother Nia smiled, her ancient eyes gleaming with knowledge. "Now, we prepare." She gestured for Eo to sit, and as he did, she began to chant softly, her voice like a low hum. The air grew heavy, the room filled with a sense of anticipation. "The gods are awakening," Mother Nia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But there are ways to stop them. Rituals, ancient magic, things that have been hidden for centuries. You will need to learn them if you are to stand a chance. Eo felt a surge of fear mixed with determination. The battle was far from over. The gods were coming, but now, for the first time, he felt like he had a chance to stop them. Mother Nia's chant echoed in the dim room, the words flowing like a hidden river through the air. The walls seemed to hum in response, as if they were alive with the ancient energy she was calling forth. Eo sat in silence, his body tense, his mind racing. The god's power was undeniable, but for the first time since the old man's warning, Eo felt a glimmer of hope. Imani sat beside him, her expression unreadable. The flicker of the candlelight danced over her face, casting deep shadows that made her features appear even more enigmatic. Eo wanted to ask more questions, but he felt the weight of the moment. The air in the room was thick with expectation, and Mother Nia's presence filled every corner of the space. "Do you feel it?" Mother Nia's voice broke the silence. She looked directly at Eo, her eyes sharp and probing. "The power in this place." Eo nodded slowly. "It's like the walls are watching us. Like something's waiting." "Exactly," Mother Nia whispered. "The gods are waiting. Their presence lingers in every stone, every shadow of this city. They've been here, hidden, for centuries. And now, they want to return." Imani leaned forward. "We need to know their rituals, Eo. We need to understand their ancient language, how they feed off belief. That's how they're able to keep their power hidden, how they can return." Eo felt a chill run down his spine. It was one thing to know the gods were powerful, but another to understand that they could manipulate belief itself. He glanced at the old woman. "What do we do now?" Mother Nia reached for a wooden box on the floor beside her. It was old, covered in dust, and carved with strange symbols Eo didn't recognize. She opened it carefully, revealing an ancient book, its pages yellowed and fragile. The cover was made of dark leather, embossed with strange markings. "The Book of Shadows. This," Mother Nia said softly, "is the key. It holds the knowledge of the gods' ancient rituals. The ones they used to walk the earth freely. The ones they will use again to take control of this world." Eo's hands shook as he reached out to touch the book. The moment his fingers brushed the cover, a strange jolt of energy passed through him. His heart raced, and the world seemed to shift around him, the room growing darker, the air heavier. "The book is alive," Mother Nia said, her voice barely a whisper. "It recognizes you, Eo. You're tied to it now. The gods know you found it." Imani's eyes widened. "It's dangerous to open it without protection. The book holds ancient magic, dark magic. You must be careful." Eo nodded, swallowing hard. He felt the pull of the book's power, but there was no turning back now. This was the path he had chosen. Mother Nia stood and walked toward an altar at the far end of the room. It was carved with intricate symbols, all representing gods and spirits from times long past. She raised her hands and began to chant again, her voice filling the room with an eerie resonance. Eo watched her, his body tense, his heart beating faster. This was no ordinary book, it was a vessel of power, a direct link to the ancient gods. As Mother Nia continued chanting, the air around him began to shift, the room becoming colder, the shadows deepening. Imani spoke in a low voice. "The book holds more than just knowledge. It holds the essence of the gods themselves. When you open it, you'll be stepping into their world. You need to be prepared for what you might find." Eo nodded, though his stomach twisted with fear. He had no choice. He opened the book slowly, feeling the weight of its power in his hands. The pages were covered in symbols and ancient text, written in a language that felt both familiar and foreign. The moment the book opened, the room seemed to pulse with energy. Shadows on the walls shifted, forming shapes that danced in the flickering candlelight. The air grew heavy, thick with the presence of something dark and ancient. Eo felt a sharp pull in his chest. It was as though the book was calling to him, drawing him deeper into its mysteries. The symbols on the pages seemed to glow faintly, and as he looked closer, he realized they were moving, shifting, rearranging themselves, as though the book was alive, breathing. Imani stepped forward, her face pale. "Close the book, Eo. It's too dangerous." But Eo couldn't move. He was transfixed by the symbols, by the energy swirling around him. He could hear whispers in his mind, low, insistent, almost pleading. The gods were speaking to him. "Do not fear the darkness," a voice whispered in his ear. "Embrace it, and you will understand the power you hold. You are one of us now." Eo's heart raced. The voice was powerful, commanding. It spoke with authority, but also with a strange sort of familiarity. Imani grabbed his arm, pulling him away from the book. "It's calling to you, Eo. The gods want you. But we need to shut it down before it takes you completely." With a trembling hand, Eo slammed the book shut. The room fell silent, the shadows retreating as the energy dispersed. His heart pounded in his chest, and he looked at the others, their faces filled with concern. Mother Nia let out a long, slow breath. "The gods know you now, Eo. They will come for you." Eo swallowed hard, the fear crawling back into his gut. "What do we do next?" Imani placed a hand on his shoulder. "Next, we prepare. We can't let them take this city. We can't let them open the gateway." But Eo knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. The gods were watching, and they would not stop until they had what they wanted. The gods are watching Eo. Why? And what do they want with him? Join our final episode to find out.